I'm going to start with a quick reminder of a story from the Old Testament. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to tell it to you. One of my favorite records when I was a little kid was this musical. Our youth group in Fort Wayne, when I lived there as a little kid, this musical my youth group did called "Cool in the Furnace," and it was about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and King Nebuchadnezzar, and they were men who would not bow to Nebuchadnezzar's god that he had set up, his idol that he had set up. They would not bow, and they were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, and he said, if you don't bow, I have to fulfill my law on you. I want to be kind to you, because he liked the guys. But he said, but if you don't bow, I am going to throw you into the furnace. And they said, King Nebuchadnezzar, we cannot bow to your idol. And he said, King Nebuchadnezzar says, your God will not be able to save you from the fire. And they said, our God will save us. And this is the statement I want you to hear. Our God will save us. But even if he does not, we will not bow. That is faith. Our God will do exactly what we need. But even if he doesn't do what we want, we will serve him. Because he is God, and we are the servants. Right? Okay, with that in mind, I want to talk on the subject of amazing faith. We sing about amazing grace a lot. I want to sing about amazing faith today. We're not going to sing it. Luke chapter 7, verses 1 through 10, amazing faith. It says this. This is a story, again, that I used to hear when I was a kid in Sunday school class. And I always enjoyed these kind of stories because they are supernatural and they're power of God, unique, that the rest of the world doesn't have stories like this. And I always loved those stories. When I was a kid, I still, as an adult, love to read about these things. And in my heart, the desire is, God, do these things, the things that you are famous for, do them again in our day. And so as we listen to this, I want you to consider, what if God would decide to do something like this again in our day? Luke chapter 7, verses 1 through 10. When Jesus had finished saying all this, you remember, by the way, just to give you all this, what that is, Jesus had just finished teaching, that's Luke's telling of the Sermon on the Mount, right? So he just finished saying, you know, if you're wise, you hear these words and you put them into practice, you're wise. If you hear these words and you don't put them into practice, you're foolish. And that was a great ending to his message. I'm sure it scored points with people. But he gets to verse 1 of chapter 7, and it says, when Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. There a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion had heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to asking him to come and to heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, this man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue. So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great faith even in Israel. Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. That's the story we're going to talk about today. And I want to talk about this amazing faith of the centurion. The first thing I want to point out in this message, as we act in faith, as we seek the help of Jesus in our lives, as we say, I know who he is. The centurion had heard of him. I know who he is. I've heard what he has done. The next step is to seek him. Seek him. He sent people to Jesus seeking his help. Seek Jesus. We go to so many other places before we finally go to prayer. We look for answers everywhere except going to Jesus with it. And sometimes it's because we think our issue is small or it's not spiritual. And since it's not a spiritual thing, Jesus doesn't really do anything in that area. I don't know what all of the logic is. You could fill in the blank for yourself. Why do I tend not to immediately go to the Lord in prayer over whatever issue happens? You know, there are issues like the presidential candidate being shot. And maybe immediately we think to go to prayer because we know I'm not there, I can't do anything about it, it's beyond my ability, and so we go to prayer. But in our own lives, we think somehow we can do it. We can fix this. Or we know people who can fix this. This centurion had a servant that he cared very much about. And that servant was almost dead. He was close to death. And what does the centurion do? He hears Jesus is near. And he sends for Jesus. Sends Jewish leaders to go and talk to Jesus. Ask him if he would heal my servant. And before he's done, he sent servants afterward to say, oh no, you don't need to come. You don't need to come. You can heal him from where you are. He was seeking Jesus. He was saying, I know where the help comes from. I know who the answer is. The only one who is truly going to be able to save my servant at this point is Jesus. Our first response should be to seek Jesus. Not last response. Not now all we can do is pray as if that's a passive thing. You know, it's one of the things that people in our culture are starting to say now. When you hear about a shooting or you hear about a bad thing happening in our country, and people say, you know, we're praying for you. What are they saying? Keep your prayers, we need help. Because they don't understand. We as the church shouldn't be thinking that way. We realize you don't need my help. You need God. You need the help of Jesus. You need a help only he can give. And so we say we're praying for you because we believe the first response is Jesus. And all through the response, it's Jesus. And after it's over, it's still Jesus. He is the answer. He is the hope. And he is the one that we thank when it's all said and done. It is Jesus. And so we go to Jesus, seek Jesus first of all. Second thing is that as these Jews went to find Jesus on his behalf, they came to him and said something kind of funny. This man deserves to have you do this. This man deserves to have you do this. Because, why? He loves our nation and he built our synagogue. He loves the Jewish people. He loves the people of God. He built a building for God. And he deserves you to do this. That was what the Jewish leaders said. You almost wonder then, did he hear? Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's just go to the second point. State your need. Go to Jesus and say, here's what he needs. He needs healing for his servant. He has a servant that he cares about, a servant who has been very helpful to him, somebody that he has leaned on for everything, probably. And he says, I don't want to lose this servant. I need this servant. Would you go to Jesus and ask him to heal my servant? I need my servant. The Jews go and ask him, here's the need. I have a servant who's dying. Would you come heal him, or would you heal him? And so state the need. What is it that you are asking from Jesus? Again, Jesus isn't bothered when you ask him, because it's actually fulfilling, it's obedience to ask. It's fulfilling his own teaching when he said, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And he follows up by saying, for whoever asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be open. So it's not greedy, it's not wrong to ask. Seek Jesus out and then tell him, what is it that you are seeking? What is it? He even says this to some other people, what do you want from me? Says to a blind man, what do you want from me? Lord, I want to see again. What do you want from him? What are you asking for? As you seek out Jesus, as you come to him, what are you asking for? And then in verses 6 through 8, interesting, he sends a second group. He sends a second group. And the second group's message is, oh no, don't come to my home. I'm not worthy of having you. That's why I didn't even come myself. I'm not worthy of this help from you. What a different attitude than what the Jews present. It's almost like he got word that the Jews told him, all right, we asked him, we told him you deserve it. We told him how great you are. We told him how important you are, how much you matter. You are probably one of the most important Romans to us as a people, and so you're so valuable, Jesus has to do this. That's what we told him. You're valuable, you're important, and you're worthy. So he sends the second group of his friends instead of the Jewish leaders this time. And they come to Jesus and they say, no, that wasn't the message our leader said to send. How worthy he was and how important he was. As a matter of fact, the message he wanted us to send this time, he wants to make sure that you understand he's not worthy. He recognizes his own flaws. He sees himself. This is a centurion. This is a man who has 100, the word century, the word means 100 years. Centurion had 100 soldiers under him. He was in charge of people. He was a man of authority and of dignity in the Roman culture which ruled the world at that time. This was a man who could have demanded Jesus be brought to him with soldiers dragging him to his house. But what was the message he sent? I'm not worthy to have you in my house. I'm not even worthy to talk to you face to face. Recognizing himself, who he was. Sometimes we get so filled with that attitude that we never ask. But the centurion says, I know I'm not worthy. I know I'm not worthy. He professed his faith starting with, please understand that I know I'm not worthy. He humbled himself. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Humble yourself. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. We go to the Lord and we don't say, God, I've done all of this for the church. I pay my tithe all the time. As a matter of fact, if I didn't pay the tithe, the church might go under. I'm very important. And you owe me this healing. See, that was the first message that the Jews kind of sent to Jesus. And Jesus says, well, okay, I'll go with you. And then as he's going, friends of the centurion come and say, wait, that wasn't the message. That wasn't the message that we wanted you to hear, that the centurion wanted to send. He did ask you to come. He did ask you to heal, but he didn't necessarily say you had to come. Because he doesn't think he's worthy to have you in his home. He doesn't think he's worthy to stand before you and speak. And until we realize none of us are worthy to ask God for any help, we aren't worthy of it. Not in ourselves, not because of our service, not because of what we do. We are completely depending on the grace and the mercy and the power of Jesus. Jesus, you told us to ask. I'm just going by your word. I know I'm not worthy of it. I know I don't deserve it. But you said you would heal. You said you would help. You said you love us. You said that the Father in heaven cares for us. And I believe you. I want you to know I believe you. But I also know you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. The second thing under this that he does is after he humbles himself, he says, but what I do, he said, I know I'm not worthy, but what I do understand is authority. I understand authority. I have men who answer to me. If I tell them to go, they go. If I tell them to come, they come. I tell them to do this, and they do it. I am a person with those who answer to my authority. And he was saying, I know who you are. You have authority over sickness. You have authority over death. You have authority over blindness. You have authority over deafness. You have authority over sickness. You are the one in authority. When you tell it to do something, it will do it. I know I'm not worthy, but I know who you are. You are a man of authority, and that is why I humbly am asking you, would you use your authority over sickness to heal my servant? That was the request I wanted the Jewish leaders to bring you. That was the attitude I wanted them to come in. Profess your faith, humble yourself, but recognize, Jesus, you are the one in authority. Would you heal my servant? Would you heal my cancer? Would you heal my blindness? Would you heal my ears? Would you heal my broken heart? Would you make me whole? Would you forgive me of all of my sins and cleanse me from all unrighteousness? And as we open ourselves up to the grace and the mercy of God and just say, would you? Then the final part of this is surrendering to his decision. Surrender to his decision. In this particular story, what was Jesus' decision? He looks at the Israelites, the Jewish people, and he says, among the Jewish people, all of Israel, the children of Jacob, I have not found someone with such faith. It says he was amazed by the faith of this centurion. Hence the title of the message, Amazing Faith. Not faith that amazes anyone else, but faith that amazed Jesus. Think about that. He was amazed by the faith of the centurion, and he says, I haven't found this kind of faith among any of the people of God. And so the servants, the friends of the centurion return home and find the servant healed, completely healed. Jesus responded immediately and said, yes. But you know what? The centurion sent them there with no guarantee. When he asked, he didn't know if Jesus would heal or not. But he was willing to respond whatever answer Jesus gave. You're the one in authority. And whatever you choose to do is up to you. All I can do is ask and let you decide. See, I'm not one of those people who believe that Jesus always heals every time we ask. If so, I think my parents would still be with us today, because they were pretty godly people. And they loved us. And they loved Jesus with all their heart. But I believe they have the ultimate healing because they're with him. And that's ultimately where we all want to be. But while we live on this earth, Jesus heals still. I believe that. God still heals. But he is the one with the final authority. He is the one who makes the final decision. And so we come to him and we ask. And whatever his response may be, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to bring up now why I brought them up to begin with, my response is, Jesus will heal you. But even if he does not, I will not bow to any other God. Because he is God. And he has every right to do what he chooses to do. And so this morning, I didn't feel like we should talk about this without actually going to the Lord and offering him the opportunity to say yes. And if there is anything that you need healing for, I'm going to invite you to come this morning to the altar. The band is going to come and play a song. We're going to sing that song. As we're singing, I invite you to come to the altar if you are seeking healing. And we are going to finish by praying for you. Because I do believe he is the Lord our healer. I believe that wholeheartedly. But I also know sometimes it's the trial that he's using to make us who we are supposed to be. And I don't want to pray you out of that. So we ask for his healing, but we surrender to his decision. Does that make sense? Would you stand with us as we sing?